Next item of old business, golf cart ordinance report from Chief Crutchfield.
Good evening. As y'all know, back during the May 11th meeting this year that we were asked to consider implementing an ordinance that will allow golf carts to be operated on town streets. This request was submitted by Case Mann pursuant to provision in North Carolina statutes. Just to update you on it, as you know, we kept y'all briefed with the memo last month. I've actually received more input from the community about this than I expected. I kind of thought, this would be one of those minor things, but I've had a lot of citizens and one business ask me about it. One business is actually thinking if we pass this of getting in the golf cart business. So it's brought us some pretty good conversations in town. So basically, I just thought it would be important that we go over what our options are. If y'all don't mind, I'm not going to read verbatim off the report. But first, I think it's important that we understand what is already legal. And under North Carolina law, there is a provision allowing what they call low-speed vehicles on certain roadways. And I've attached a copy of the North Carolina General Statute. And basically that is, if y'all see them in some resort communities, if you go down to the coast and beach areas and even in other states, they can take what's considered a low-speed vehicle, and these are golf carts that have been modified, electric vehicles, electric trucks, and they've been modified to meet these federal standards, and they can register with the state of North Carolina, proving that they have the proper safety equipment and the proper insurance and the provisions, and it's actually a registered motor vehicle under the state statutes. If someone has one registered under these provisions, they can operate it like any motor vehicle in the town of Pittsboro on any street that's posted speed limit 35 miles per hour or less. So that's one of the options that's already out there to all the citizens of the state of North Carolina right now. If they equip and register their golf cart as a low-speed vehicle, they could be driving on the streets of Pittsburgh right now. And the second option is, North Carolina statutes do have a provision for registration of golf carts, regulation of golf carts on streets, roads, and highways. As y'all see in the attached statute, and Mr. Messick probably correct me if I'm wrong, we do have a provision in the North Carolina statutes that allows us to allow for golf carts to be operated on city streets. And these don't have to necessarily meet the regulations of a low-speed vehicle for the state. And under these provisions, which is the provision which Ms. Mann submitted her request, I assume, is that we can decide what regulations, what safety equipment we do desire to be installed in vehicles, and what other things such as insurance, whether they have a driver's license, what restrictions we want to put on it, and we can have a registration process and allow a golf cart to be registered to be operated on town streets. It does regulate that it can't be on the street, just like the state statute that goes over 35 miles per hour, and the state does in this provision require it to be operated to be at least 16 years of age, just like a regular motor vehicle. And that's pretty much it in a nutshell. I put in the memo that those are really our two options. Option A is really by default, if we do nothing, anyone can go under the state standard right now, have their golf carts, upfitted under a low-speed vehicle, have it registered, and they can be operated in any way. Or option B is we decide what provisions under which we would like a golf cart to be provided if we decide to do that, and then we could pass an ordinance with those restrictions. Now that said, on the model ordinance that we were provided with by Ms. Mann, I will say that it was pretty well written and it looked like it was carefully researched. I've talked with some other agencies. I've looked over several ordinances from the state of North Carolina, I think Pinehurst, Belmont, Ocean Isle, or one of the beaches, a couple of others, and I've compared it to that, and it's pretty much, mostly comparing apples to apples. Some have different provisions, some don't. Some of the things that I've liked in the ordinance, now I'm not endorsing it one way or another, please don't get me that way, but if we are going to consider one, I do like the fact that some require insurance. I feel like that would be a very important thing, just to protect all our citizens if they're involved in an accident. They'll protect anybody that they have an accident with, also passengers in the vehicle. I like the fact that some towns require you to be a licensed driver. That kind of removes all doubt. They still have to be a licensed driver to operate it. Those are some of the provisions that, in my capacity, I definitely see would be pluses if we put in there. One of the things, if you saw in the memo that I made for y'all, most towns don't, that I looked at, require an occupant restraint system, but I still feel like, as a law enforcement officer and the safety of our citizens is one of my top priorities, that I need to bring that in the discussion so y'all can consider whether or not you want to require them to have them retrofitted with occupant restraint systems. And I'm by no means an expert on these things, but I've been researching, reading a lot of the guidelines, and I'm more learned about golf carts now than I've ever been, and the safety and other issues. And of course, if you saw in the memo, there are advantages and disadvantages. Obviously, they're easy to operate. They're obviously more environmentally friendly. They're more accessible, but also there are the safety concerns that you would have with the one. That would be the biggest negative, because they're obviously not going to be as safe as a motor vehicle that meets the federal safety regulations. But that said, neither are bicycles and neither are mopeds that are going up and down the street either. So they have their pros and cons.
Just have a question. There's no mention of children on this. Are children generally allowed to ride as passengers in these, and are they required to wear safety or child seats?
I'm glad you brought that up. That's the one that kind of made me mention the occupant restraint system. Children aren't generally allowed to ride, but in one of the safety studies I read, the biggest concern with children in a golf cart is if you've ever rode a golf cart, the driver's pretty safe because they're going at low speed, he's got the steering wheel. And most adults, we can grab that handle or something. But the injuries that do happen to children are when they make a hard left, because there's no high side. If it doesn't have a seatbelt, sometimes children fall out and they'll hit their head on the asphalt or whatever the hard surface is, and it causes head injuries. So that would be my concern with small children more than anything, because they don't have the upper body strength nor the average height that sometimes when it makes a left. On one of the safety studies I read, and like I said, I've actually tried to research this fairly well because I want to be the best informed I can to tell y'all, the pros and cons, and that is a concern. Now, that said, if we want to require a minimum age to ride or a safety seat, a safety belt for a certain age ride passenger, that's all up to y'all. We can tailor this ordinance, and Mr. Messick, correct me if I'm wrong, to have whatever provisions we want in our ordinance to allow golf carts.
Percy, I think we may have talked about that earlier. Now 64 and 15501, will we just go allow crossing, or will we ever go parallel with the street?
The way I understand the ordinance is, if we allow one, of course, if it's a low-speed vehicle, it can be on any. But this ordinance only allows us to operate them on our town streets. So any DOT-maintained roadway, which would be US 64, 15501, the 87 Connector Road, and a portion of Thompson Street, technically, I don't think they'd be allowed to do anything but cross.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna say this.
Sorry.
Yeah, you can cross.
Yeah, you can cross, but they can't drive on them.
Yeah.
So,
Can they use bike lanes?
ma'am,
Can they use bike lanes?
not anything I've read, and most of the model ordinances I've read, they don't even allow, obviously, like if you're going to park, you have a parking space designated for vehicles. You can't be parking on the sidewalk.
The reason I'm asking, I think Chapel Park with their network of bike lanes, I think they're sure that they would love to ride golf carts.
Yeah. So, and I'm assuming that, of course, that would actually be a private property unless it's a town-maintained greenway. I'm assuming we might could put that in our ordinance. Mr. Messick, do you have any opinion on that?
If you're with bicycles, depends on the bike.
If it's a town greenway, I assume that's our property, so we could allow it. But the only thing is, the way I read it, and again, I could be wrong, but a DOT-maintained road still would have to comply with the state standards, but a street that's owned by the town, owned or maintained by the town of Pittsboro, we can allow it under these provisions.
I have a question. When you say crossing, that's DOT, designated road or congested road, is that like the cross area on, say, Salisbury and Main Street? Because when I think crossing, I think, say, coming from our neighborhood, heading over to the mill, there's no light or anything.
Yeah, even if there's no light, they
So
could.
if you're crossing and you can't get the speed, then that seems like a really dangerous situation with no light.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and that's where you get into those, but
Yeah.
it-
Well,
you know-
if you're pedestrian, if you're in golf cart or something, that's it, then you just.
But for example, if you wanted to come up Martin Luther King right here and cross, or if you came up Davie Street and could go across there to Tumor Loop, that would be legal the way I see it. Now, like you said, sometimes that's a busy intersection, but we have, pedestrians, bicycles, and scooters, motoring around town also, so I don't want, we have other people that are very cautiously doing it also.
Yeah, Chief, on section 2 that talks about registration and fees, we don't really call out a fee amount, or talk about the collection of the fee. So would be on, would we establish that with all the other fees we have in the budget, that we put in here?
Just put it in there, it'd be easier to have this.
As far as the fee schedule in the budget, so maybe we should say that with the fees that we submitted with the registration application, and the amount would be determined.
Yes, sir, because if we charge a fee and do register them, I'd like us to have at least some type of registration sticker, so some officers will notice when it's been validly registered, and if we, at that would be the time that we require them to have insurance, they would have to also provide a proof of insurance coverage with the registration fee, so at least we have something on file. And we'd also have a standard liability waiver that we'd want them to sign with the registration, also obviously not holding the town liable.
And in section 3, you left it blank there, it says maximum penalty for violation shall be $9.
Yes,
I
sir.
assume if there's a violation, they would get a traffic ticket just like anybody.
Yeah, if we give them a citation for violation of motor vehicle laws, that would be the set standard by the administrative office of the courts. But if we're charging with violating town ordinance, that would be the fee that would be set forth by the board, like any other violation of town ordinance, like a noise ordinance.
It's not good for the town, it
Goes to the school
like any
system.
traffic ticket that goes to the school.
Yes, sir. Any fees that are assessed in a traffic citation go to the Board of Education.
I would be looking for regulation review on what's the maximum.
Okay, and I'll be happy to get back to you on that. That's the one thing I didn't think to ask the other towns, but I know it's in their ordinances, so I can get that for you pretty quickly.
You're setting a maximum, I guess you would look for the most egregious violation. That's not a fair value to that, or going along with the speed limit, what would be the maximum? Reckless driving or reckless endangering or something would be the high end, I guess.
Yes.
Or driving on top of it.
Yeah, well, if they're driving while intoxicated, they're going to be charged, not with the town ordinance, they're going to be charged with all the North Carolina motor vehicle violations.
I'm just saying, when you're figuring out what that maximum number is, it ought to be probably the severe violation, right? Well, that I like, I think it's a.
I've got one comment. It makes mention throughout about operation on a public street. And, I can imagine, well, I can't think of anywhere in Pittsboro right now that is a road system that is privately maintained, yet performs all the functions of a public road. It's in a subdivision, and that subdivision chose to have privately maintained roads, but there's 50 houses in the subdivision. Emergency vehicles are going to be coming in there on the same roads. All the same traffic patterns will occur on that privately maintained road, and would this exempt that roadway from these safety requirements?
Actually, it probably would, because that would be a public vehicular area, and some of those, depending on the development type, may not be a public vehicular area if it was a gated community, but in the PVAs, there's not so much we could regulate anyway. There aren't so many statutes that we can enforce in public vehicular areas.
Well, I think I would like to see this include those private roads.
Yeah. Well, they would be allowed to if the owner of that private property wants to allow them to. Like in a lot of the communities, for example, I'm pretty sure from my experience with Sheriff's Office, the Governor's Club, because that's a private road, the golf carts are up and down throughout there. So if it's a privately owned and maintained road, they can allow it if they want to. That's their private property. The only restrictions that would apply would be the laws that apply to any vehicle on a public vehicle area, as far as impaired driving, careless and reckless driving, safe movement violation possibly, something like that.
I don't know. Mr. Messick, do you have any advice on that?
The town would not be in a position to authorize golf carts under this ordinance on private property. Be up to the individual. So just because it's legal now, it means they won't.
Well, but the town would have the ability to require the roadways that currently be to a public standard. And therefore, the public safety is associated with that standard.
I don't think you're going to ask the town police private roads, private state communities. So, no, I think it's not. It may be constructed to a public standard, but it's not going to be necessarily maintained or supervised, policed to a public standard.
Okay. I just see it's the same equation, just a matter of who owns and maintains the roadway. But the roads function exactly the same.
We're not talking about the roads, we're talking about people who are operating a golf cart. You have the authority to regulate golf carts on town streets. You don't have the authority to regulate golf carts on T streets or private streets. There is a limit to it.
Okay, thank you.
So, any more other questions?
Yes.
I have no more, person, Chief, just say, Potterstone down at the, south end of town. They would not, by 15501, they would not be able to use 15501 to come into town. Is that correct?
No, sir, the way I interpret the statute, since that's a state maintained road, we can't give permission to use the state maintained roads. The state does allow them to cross.
Right. So they crossed 87, then they would be on the 87 loop also.
Yeah, which is a state maintained road. So they're kind of, until there's something connecting all those roads on that side, they're kind of stuck there. Now, if they did have that registered as a low-speed vehicle, they would be allowed to, because that section of state maintained road is 35 miles per hour or less. So if they had one that was registered through the DMV, they could, pretty much if you had one registered with the DMV, you could drive it almost all of Pittsboro city limits with the exception of the section north of Miss Alice's house where it turns to 45, the connector road, and a section of town on this side. Everywhere else in town is 35 or below.
Chief, you talked about children, and we really probably need to address that in here also if we're going to pass this particular ordinance, reference to children being passengers in the golf cart, because I would hate for a child to fall out, as you had explained in reference to that. So they would have to be definitely seat belted in or something. We need to also put that in ordinance.
Yes, ma'am, that's, like I said, we can tailor the ordinances we see fit to protect our citizens. So if we wanted to put like an age restriction, like passengers under whatever age have to be, restrained by an occupant restraint system, we can put that in there. That is an option.
Height restriction at an age.
I'm not trying to make it sound horrible, but the studies I have seen is small children when it makes it hard left. If it turns left abruptly, because I think most of these probably rode a golf cart some point in time, if you're not holding on to it, it could fall out, and because they're so young and fragile, they can get a head injury. So that was the only. There's several concerns, obviously. I don't want anybody to run over anybody in a golf cart in town, much less any car. But with small children, that was one of the things in the safety studies I read.
Yeah, that can happen to adults too, and if you did it, a golf turned over a girl if you.
Yeah.
That's my goodness.
That's what you're, it's what direction you want to go in, if you want to pursue this, and we'll be happy to look into it. Yes.
So, what's the will of the board? Do you want to bring this back to us with some of these changes, or do we want to write on it and bring some notes and give it to the chief, and then ask him to bring it back? Okay. pretty strong comments about the issue of children in this thing, that clearly they won't be allowed restraints of some sort. And I don't know if we want to allow infant seats or not, that's, we need to have more discussion on that.
Interesting to see if the studies are accurate, that maybe say for, last week, so we don't have that.
So we want the chief to refine this and bring it back.
I think it'd be good to refine it and bring it back.
Now, you talking about refining with like some restraint parades?
Yes.
Okay, let me,
There's some.
okay,
The question
Be happy to look into it.
Would adults be required to wear a skirt too, or just children?
I think
okay. So you want us just to require restraint, looking to require restraint systems?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, there's some people.
Yeah, and they can be retrofitted with seat belts apparently, fairly easily, I believe.
Okay, Jarvis manufactured those vehicles that are, with pets, they're like that. We may start seeing some of those, I don't know if they use restraint or not.
Yeah.
We have to think about those kinds of things.
And see, I think they might come under the bicycle statutes and may not be an issue that we could regulate anyway.
We see one of those in our planning department periodically.
That may fall under those two, whatever. Okay, there you go. We have this one.